Commander Zane Blackwood had seen enough war to know the taste of bitter irony. Today, that taste was particularly sharp as he stared at the empty swing set in his backyard. The chains moved slightly in the morning breeze, as if his daughter Emma had just jumped off moments ago. But Emma hadn't been on that swing for 3 days now. 3 days since the Vorthack had made the worst mistake of their collective alien lives. "Sir, we have confirmation." Lieutenant Sarah Chen's voice cut through his thoughts like a blade through flesh. Long-range scanners picked up the Vorthack mothership. They're heading for the Kepler system, just like our intel suggested. Zane turned from the window, his jaw set like carved granite. Behind him, the assembled crew of the UES Retribution waited in perfect silence. These weren't just soldiers anymore. They were parents, siblings, friends of the 23 children the Vorthack had stolen from Earth's outer colonies. But Emma was special. She was his. How long until we intercept? His voice carried the kind of calm that made smart people take several steps back. 18 hours at maximum burn, sir. 18 hours. Zane almost laughed. The Vorthack probably thought they were safe by now. They'd grabbed their precious cargo of human children. Thinking Earth would negotiate, maybe send diplomatic protests through the Galactic Council. They had no idea they'd just painted the biggest target in the universe on their scaly heads. "Attention, crew of the Retribution." Zane's voice echoed through the ship's communication system. "Some of you know my daughter Emma, 8 years old, loves chocolate ice cream and terrible jokes about space pirates. 3 days ago, she was playing in our garden on New Melbourne. Today, she's somewhere on that Vorthack ship, probably scared out of her mind." He paused, letting that sink in. In the silence, you could hear the low hum of the ship's engines, the quiet breathing of 300 souls united by one burning purpose. The Vorthack made a mistake. They think humans are soft. They think we'll negotiate. They think we'll follow their rules. His laugh was sharp enough to cut through steel. They're about to learn something our enemies have learned throughout history. You don't take our children. Not ever. Not without consequences that will echo through the stars. Dr. Marcus Webb, the ship's xenobiologist, cleared his throat nervously. "Sir, with respect, the Vorthack are a Tier 3 civilization. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Their ship probably has defenses we've never even dreamed of." Zane turned to face him, and something in his eyes made the doctor take an involuntary step backward. "Dr. Webb, do you have children?" Yes, sir. Twin boys, age 6. "Then you understand." Zane's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. The Vorthack have superior technology. They have energy shields that can deflect our best weapons. They have computers that think faster than our entire crew combined. But they don't have what we have. "What's that, sir?" "Rage." The word hung in the air like smoke from a funeral pyre. Around the bridge, hardened veterans nodded. They understood. This wasn't about military tactics or diplomatic solutions. This was about something far more primal, far more dangerous. Chief Engineer Rosa Martinez pulled up a holographic display of the Vorthack mothership. The thing was massive, easily 10 times the size of the Retribution. Its hull gleamed with adaptive armor that could shift and reshape to deflect incoming fire. Weapon ports lined its surface like the eyes of some cosmic spider. The ship's designated as a Harvester-class vessel, Martinez reported. Intelligence suggests it's designed for specimen collection. The children are probably being held in the central biolabs here. She highlighted a section near the ship's core. Probably. Lieutenant Chen raised an eyebrow. "The Vorthack don't exactly publish blueprints of their ships, Lieutenant." Zane studied the display, his mind already working through possibilities. The direct approach would be suicide. The Retribution was tough, but not tough enough to punch through those defenses head-on. But humans hadn't conquered half the galaxy by fighting fair. "What do we know about Vorthack psychology?" he asked. Dr. Webb consulted his datapad. They're remarkably similar to Earth reptiles in many ways. Cold-blooded, calculating, but with some interesting quirks. They have an almost pathological need for order and predictability. Chaos terrifies them on a genetic level. Interesting. Zane's smile was the kind that made enemy commanders wake up in cold sweats. "Chief Martinez, What's the status on our experimental systems? The chief engineer grinned. The chaos field generators are finally working properly. We can create localized space-time distortions that will play havoc with their sensors and navigation. It won't last long, but it might give us the edge we need. And the new stealth coating? Operational, but untested in real combat conditions. Zane nodded. We're about to give it the ultimate field test. Dr. Webb, I want you to prepare something special for our Vorthack friends. Remember those bio-warfare protocols we developed during the Centauri campaign? The doctor's eyes widened. Sir, those were never approved for actual use. The ethical implications. Doctor, Zane's voice could have frozen plasma. They took children. Human children. Do you really want to discuss ethics right now? Webb swallowed hard and nodded. I'll see what I can prepare. Good. Lieutenant Chun signaled the fleet. All ships are to maintain radio silence from this point forward. We're going dark. As the crew dispersed their preparations, Zane remained on the bridge, staring at the tactical display. Emma's face smiled at him from a small hologram on his command console, a picture from her last birthday. Chocolate cake smeared on her cheek, gap-toothed grin bright enough to power a small star. Sir, Lieutenant Chin approached cautiously. Permission to speak freely? Granted. The crew is behind you 100%. But some of them are asking, what if we can't get the children out alive? What if the Vorthack decide to kill them rather than let them be rescued? Zane finished. I've thought about that, Lieutenant. The Vorthack are scientists first, warriors second. They want those children for research. They won't destroy valuable specimens lightly. And if you're wrong? Zane was quiet for a long moment, watching Emma's hologram flicker in the artificial light. Then we make sure every single Vorthack on that ship pays the price. We make sure the galaxy knows what happens when you threaten human children. We become the nightmare story they tell their young to keep them in line. The next several hours passed in a blur of preparation. The Retribution's hull was coated with the experimental stealth compound, a mixture of quantum-absorbing materials that would theoretically make them nearly invisible to Vorthack sensors. The chaos field generators were calibrated and tested. Weapons were loaded with specially designed rounds that would cause maximum damage to Vorthack biotechnology. In the medical bay, Dr. Webb worked on a special project, muttering ethical concerns under his breath while his hands moved with practiced precision. He knew what needed to be done, even if his conscience protested every step of the way. In engineering, Chief Martinez and her team performed miracles of improvisation, jury-rigging systems that had no business working together into something that might give them the edge they needed. The Retribution had always been more than the sum of its parts, but today it would need be something approaching miraculous. And throughout the ship, 300 human beings prepared for what might be their last fight. They cleaned weapons with the devotion of priests preparing sacred rituals. They wrote letters they hoped would never need to be sent. They thought about the children they were trying to save, and the ones they left behind on distant worlds. 10 minutes to intercept, Chin announced. Zane stood from his captain's chair, straightening his uniform with deliberate care. All stations, report. Stealth systems online and functioning. Chaos generators charged and ready. All weapon systems green. Dr. Webb's special delivery is loaded and ready for deployment. Communications are dark and secure. Zane nodded, satisfied. Around him, the bridge crew worked with the quiet efficiency of professionals who knew their lives depended on doing their jobs perfectly. These people trusted him to bring them through this alive. More importantly, they trusted him to bring those children home. Sensors are picking up the Vorthack ship, the tactical officer reported. Bearing 27 Mark 8. Distance, 50,000 kilometers and closing. Visual on main screen. The Vorthack mothership appeared on the main display, and even hardened veterans caught their breath. The thing was beautiful in the way that poisonous creatures often are. Its hull gleamed with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed like a slow heartbeat. Weapon ports opened and closed like breathing gills. It moved through space with the fluid grace of something that had evolved in the dark between stars. My God, someone whispered. How are we supposed to fight that thing? Zane smiled, and this time there was nothing cold about it. This time, It was the smile of a man who just remembered he had an ace up his sleeve. "We don't fight it," he said quietly. "We hurt it where it can't defend itself. We make it bleed. And then, when it's wounded and confused and angry, we show it what human ingenuity really means." He turned to his crew, seeing his own determination reflected in their faces. "Remember, people, this isn't about winning a battle. This isn't about military glory or tactical superiority. This is about children who are depending on us to bring them home. This is about showing the galaxy that humanity protects its own, no matter the cost." The Vorthack ship continued its stately progress through space, unaware that death was stalking it with human eyes and human fury. Aboard their vessel, alien scientists probably continued their research, cataloging the genetic patterns of human children, planning experiments that would unlock the secrets of human adaptability and resilience. They had no idea they were about to become test subjects themselves. Range, 30,000 kilometers. Steady as she goes, Zane commanded, "Remember, we get one chance at surprise. Make it count." The Vorthack research coordinator Thex 9 considered itself supremely intelligent, even by the standards of its highly advanced species. It had cataloged over 4,000 different species across the galaxy, each one properly documented, studied, and filed away in the vast databases of Vorthack knowledge. Today, it was particularly pleased with its latest acquisitions. 23 human specimens, all in the optimal age range for neurodevelopment studies. The creatures were fascinating in their primitive way. Unlike other species of Vorthack had studied, these humans showed remarkable emotional responses to stress. Their brain patterns were chaotic, unpredictable, almost artistic in their complexity. Coordinator, one of its subordinates, approached with a cautious posture that indicated important news. Long-range sensors are detecting unusual readings. Thex 9 barely looked up from its datapad. Define unusual. Spatial distortions. Minor gravitational fluctuations. It could be natural phenomena, but you wish to waste my time with possibilities and maybes? Thex 9's voice carried the cold disdain that kept its subordinates properly motivated. "We are in empty space, many cycles from any inhabited system. There is nothing here but us and our specimens." The subordinate made a gesture of submission and backed away. This was typical Vorthack hierarchy at work. Information flowed upward only when absolutely necessary, and questioning a superior's judgment was a career-limiting move. It was an efficient system that had served them well for millennia. It was also about to get them all killed. Aboard the Retribution, Zane watched the tactical display with the focused intensity of a predator. The stealth coding was working perfectly. To Vorthack sensors, they were just another piece of space debris drifting harmlessly through the void. The chaos generators were ready, primed to create the kind of sensory overload that would send the enemy ship into complete confusion. Distance, 15,000 kilometers, the tactical officer reported in a whisper. This was the critical moment. Too close, and they'd be detected before they could spring their trap. Too far, and their weapons wouldn't have enough punch to penetrate the Vorthack defenses. Zane had run the calculations 100 times, but space combat was never as clean as mathematics suggested. "Sir," Dr. Webb's voice came to the comm system. "My special delivery is ready for deployment." "What exactly did you cook up for our reptilian friends, Doctor?" Something that should give them a very bad day. Even through the comm, you could hear the mixture of professional pride and ethical uncertainty in his voice. "I've created a bioagent specifically tailored to Vorthack physiology. It won't kill them, but it will make them extremely uncomfortable. Think of it as a galaxy's worst case of food poisoning, multiplied by 10. Zane's laugh was sharp with approval. "Poetic justice, Doctor. I like it. Distance, 10,000 kilometers. The Vorthack ship continued its course, completely unaware of the danger stalking it. Inside its biolabs, human children probably sat in containment cells, wondering if anyone was coming to save them. Emma might be looking out a viewport right now, watching the stars and hoping her daddy would find her. He would find her, and God help anyone who had hurt her. Distance, 8,000 kilometers. We are now within optimal firing range. All stations, this is a captain." Zane's voice carried to every corner of the ship. "Remember your training. Remember why we're here. And remember that mercy is a luxury we can't afford today. He settled into his command chair, hands steady on the controls that would unleash 3 centuries of human military evolution on an unsuspecting enemy. Chief Martinez, activate chaos generators on my mark. Dr. Webb, prepare to deploy your biological surprise. All weapons, target their sensor arrays and defensive systems. The bridge fell silent except for the quiet hum of electronics and the barely audible breathing of the crew. This was the moment that separated veterans from recruits, professionals from amateurs. This was where training and instinct and 300 years of human warfare experience would either save those children or doom them all. Mark. Space erupted into chaos. The chaos generators fired simultaneously, creating localized distortions in space-time that played havoc with every sensor system on the Vortex ship. To their computers, reality itself seemed to be malfunctioning. Navigation systems reported impossible readings. Weapon targeting computers couldn't lock onto anything. Even basic communications became garbled and unreliable. At the same moment, the Retribution's weapons opened fire, not the massive energy blast that most species preferred, but precisely targeted kinetic rounds designed to cause maximum damage to specific systems. The Vortex ship sensor arrays exploded in showers of sparks and debris. Its defensive shield generators overloaded and shut down. Its communication array simply ceased to exist. And then Dr. Webb's special delivery arrived. The bio-agent dispersed through the Vortex ship's atmosphere system like a whisper of death. Within seconds, every Vortex aboard began experiencing symptoms that would have been amusing if they weren't so debilitating. Nausea, vertigo, uncontrollable muscle spasms, and a particularly unpleasant effect on their respiratory systems that made breathing feel like drowning in reverse. Direct hit on all primary targets. The tactical officer reported with satisfaction. Their shields are down, sensors are offline, and they're not shooting back. Outstanding. Zane stood from his chair, straightening his uniform with the deliberate care of a man preparing for war. Lieutenant Chun signaled the boarding teams. It's time to collect our children. The next phase of the operation required a different kind of courage. While space combat was terrifying, at least you had the comfort of distance, of fighting enemies you couldn't see face to face. Boarding action was personal, brutal, and unforgiving. You looked your enemy in the eye before you killed them. Zane led the first boarding party personally, not because regulations required it, but because Emma was on that ship, and no power in the universe would keep him from being the first one to reach her. He wore full combat armor, carried enough weapons to arm a small squad, and had the look of a man who had forgotten how to lose. The airlock sealed behind them with a sound like destiny closing. Ahead lay the twisted corridors of an alien ship, filled with enemies who had made the mistake of taking human children. Behind them was everything they were fighting for: home, family, the future of the human race. Remember, people, Zane's voice came through their helmet comms. We're not here to make friends. We're here to collect our kids and send a message. Anyone who gets between us and those children is going to learn why humans are the most feared warriors in this galaxy. The first Vortex they encountered was stumbling through the corridor, clutching its throat, and making sounds that might have been words if you were feeling charitable. Dr. Webb's bioagent had clearly done its job. The creature barely noticed them before Chief Martinez put out of its misery with a single shot. Well, that was almost disappointingly easy, she observed. Don't get cocky, Zane warned. They'll adapt. They always do. They moved through the ship with the methodical efficiency of professionals who knew their business. The chaos generators were still working, filling the corridors with flickering shadows and impossible sounds. Emergency lighting cast everything in an eerie red glow that made the alien architecture look even more threatening than usual. It took them 20 minutes to reach the biolabs, 20 minutes of careful movement through a ship that seemed to be dying around them. The Vortex they encountered were in various states of distress, some barely conscious, others trying desperately to coordinate a defense with communication systems that no longer worked properly. Contact front, someone called out as they reached the lab entrance. 3 Vortex scientists had barricaded themselves behind some kind of energy barrier, their scaled faces twisted with pain, but their eyes bright with desperate intelligence. One of them was holding something that looked suspiciously like a weapon. Umans. It spoke an accented but understandable standard. You will cease this aggression immediately. We have rights under galactic law. We have protections. Zane stepped forward, removing his helmet so the alien could see his face clearly. What it saw there made it take an involuntary step backward. You have rights. Zane's voice was conversational, almost friendly. That's interesting. Tell me, what rights did the children have when you took them from their homes? What protections were they offered? We are scientists. We seek only knowledge. The specimens will not be permanently harmed. Specimens. Zane tasted the word like poison. You call them specimens. He gestured to his squad, and they moved with practiced coordination. The energy barrier flickered and died under sustained fire. The Vorthak scientists found themselves face to face with very angry humans carrying very large guns. Where are the children? Zane asked quietly. The lead scientist pointed with a trembling claw toward a sealed door. Containment Bay 7. They are unharmed. We needed them intact for our research. Research? Zane's smile was colder than space itself. What kind of research? Neural development patterns. Emotional response matrices. Pain threshold studies. The scientist never finished the sentence. Zane's fist connected with his jaw with enough force to crack bone. The creature dropped like a stone, unconscious before it hit the floor. Anyone else want to discuss research methodology? He asked the remaining scientists. They wisely remained silent. The door Containment Bay 7 opened with a soft hiss, revealing a sight that made hardened veterans fight back tears. 23 human children, ages 5 to 12, huddled together in a sterile white room. They were scared, confused, but alive, unharmed. And there, in the center of the group, was Emma. Daddy. Her voice was small, uncertain, as if she couldn't quite believe he was real. Zane dropped to his knees, pulling off his combat gear as he moved. I'm here, sweetheart. Daddy's here. She ran to him with the desperate speed of a child who had thought she might never see her father again. When his arms closed around her, something inside his chest that had been frozen solid for 3 days finally began to thaw. I knew you'd come, she whispered into his shoulder. I told the other kids you'd come. I told them humans don't leave anyone behind. That's right, baby girl. We don't. The reunion was brief but perfect. There would be time for longer conversations later. Time to help the children process what had happened to them. Right now, there was still work to do. Lieutenant Chun signaled the ship. 23 children safe and secure. Begin immediate evacuation procedures. Copy that, sir. Medical teams are standing by. As the children were led to safety by the boarding team's medics, Zane turned back to the surviving Vorthak scientists. They watched him with the wary attention of prey animals who knew they were still in mortal danger. You wanted to study humans, he told them conversationally. You wanted to understand what makes us special. Well, congratulations. You're about to get a very thorough education. He activated his comm system, broadcasting on all frequencies. This is Commander Zane Blackwood of the United Earthship Retribution. To any Vorthak listening, understand this. You took human children. You made them afraid. You treated them like laboratory animals. His voice carried the cold finality of a judge pronouncing sentence. This is what happens when you threaten our young. This ship is now a tomb. Everyone aboard is dead or dying. Your research data has been destroyed. Your precious specimens have been liberated. He paused, letting the words sink in across the galaxy. But here's the part you really need to understand. This is a revenge. This is a promise. Touch another human child, and we will find you. We will hunt you across the stars. We will show you why humanity conquered half the galaxy in 3 centuries. The transmission ended. Around him, the Vorthak ship continued its slow death, systems failing one by one as the chaos generators did their work. In a few hours, it would be nothing but drifting scrap metal and bad memories. But the children were safe. Emma was safe. And the galaxy had learned something important about humanity. We protect our own. Always. No matter the cost. As the boarding teams evacuated back to the Retribution, Zane took one last look around the alien ship. Tomorrow, there would be diplomatic protests and galactic council hearings. There would be questions about proportional response and civilized behavior. He could live with that. Emma was going home, and that was all that mattered. The stars watched silently as the human ship turned toward home, carrying its precious cargo to safety. Behind them, the Vorthack mothership drifted through space, a monument to the galaxy's newest lesson. Some mistakes you only get to make once.